Mr. President, last month the Senate Finance Committee considered legislation to extend a number of expired tax provisions. Now, we've become so accustomed to extending various tax credits and deductions on a year-by-year basis that we've given this bill the name tax extenders, and it comes up every year. Unfortunately, these short-term fixes passed by Congress fail to give any certainty to taxpayers in the future, other than the fact that government continues to give preferential treatment to certain chosen industries. Now, rather than blindly extend these provisions, what we ought to do is eliminate these wasteful extenders, which are really just subsidies. These benefit just a few. Those that are necessary for the economy, let's extend them permanently so we don't go through this exercise year after year. But today, let me just discuss for a minute one extender that is ripe for elimination. This is the production tax credit, otherwise known as the PTC. In 1992, the PTC was temporarily extended or established to promote development of renewable energy, or electricity particularly. And this was for the then fledgling wind power industry. Congress gave energy producers a lengthy 7-year window to take advantage of and prepare for the eventual expiration of this tax credit in 1999. But as we know, in Washington, very few of these programs are temporary. So here we are, 15 years later, the PTC is still hanging around. Since its inception, the credit has been extended 8 times. Having expired on January 1st of this year, there's now another effort afoot to resurrect what can only be described as a zombie credit. Do we really need a 9th extension? Wouldn't it be more intellectually honest to decide if this government policy is worth it to simply permanently renew? Yet we go through this exercise year after year. Now, last month there was a glimmer of hope that common sense would prevail. The tax extender package put forward by Senator Wyden and Ranking Member Hatch excluded the PTC. It allowed the credit to finally expire. It wouldn't have been part of this package. However, it didn't take long for those who benefit from this government subsidy to activate the rallying cry. A few short days later, the PTC was back in the package, and it would provide the wind industry 2 additional years until the end of 2015 to start construction on projects that would be eligible for the subsidy. According to the Joint Committee on Taxation, this short extension would cost more than $13 billion over the next 10 years. But this isn't the true cost. Wind producers get to claim the credit for 10 years, beginning on the date of first production as opposed to the start of construction. So in reality, the federal government's financial commitment extends well beyond the 10-year period considered in the JTC's initial estimate. The government will still likely be passing out these credits in 2027 and beyond. That's a long commitment for a technology that former Energy Secretary Stephen Chu said was mature in 2009. In fact, he projected that wind would be cost competitive with other forms of energy without subsidies by the end of this decade. Now, wind power generation is no longer an infant industry. It's no longer in need of federal support. By the end of last year, more than 61,000 megawatts of wind power capacity had been installed around the U.S. That's 15 times the amount that existed in 2001. In 2012, wind power was the top source of new generating capacity, beating out additional capacity from natural gas. The PTC, in fact, is so generous that at times it is more valuable than the wholesale price of electricity. That's a whopper of a subsidy. According to the Congressional Research Service, as a result of government subsidies, there are times when wind producers actually pay the market to take their power. Now, recently, some of my colleagues who support the tax credit have pointed to the growing share of wind power generation in the U.S. and the more than 550 wind-related manufacturing facilities around the country. They will supply tens of thousands of jobs. But rather than depicting an infant industry, those who advance this cause of continuing this subsidy describe an industry that should be ready to stand on its own 2 feet. We all know the U.S. has a $7.5 trillion debt. All subsidies like this need to be eliminated. The production tax credit distorts the market by having government favor one source of energy over another. Of course, an ideal energy market is one that is absent, or largely absent at least, from government's convoluted tax policies. Simply put, no industry success should be predicated on congressional action. Instead of extending an energy subsidy that picks winners and losers and credits that create market inefficiencies, Congress should eliminate the PTC and support an energy policy that encourages entrepreneurs to satisfy demand by providing consumers with alternative sources of energy. This law has run its course. The PTC should meet its long overdue end. Mr. President, I yield back the floor.